The steel door clanged shut with a finality that echoed to the sterile confines of the interrogation room, carrying more than just sound. It bore the immense, crushing weight of guilt, deception, and a labyrinth of secrets meticulously hidden beneath a carefully constructed facade for far too long. Chris Watts sat across from the seasoned investigator, his wrists and ankles bound by cold steel, his head bowed. Yet an unnerving, almost serene calm clung to him like a second skin. In a confession that would send shivers down the spines of millions, he admitted something chilling, a detail that painted a portrait of depravity previously unimagined. Watts explained that he had planned a murder for several weeks, and that the OxyContin found in Shanann's system was given to her by him, hoping to end her pregnancy because he believed that would make it easier for him to be with his girlfriend. This revelation, whispered in the hushed tones of a man recounting a mundane chore, was the first piercing glimpse into the face of his cruelty, a chilling testament to the calculated, premeditated thoughts that starkly contradicted the image he had so carefully crafted, that of a doting father, a devoted husband, and a dependable family man. But how, the world collectively wondered, could a man who appeared so ordinary and trustworthy descend into such depth of darkness? To begin to unravel this case, we must journey back, beyond the confines of that interrogation room, back to the seemingly idyllic suburban landscape where the nightmare began. Frederick, Colorado. The very name evokes images of calm and predictable suburban life. It's the kind of place where children ride bicycles down tree-lined streets, neighbors exchange pleasantries over manicured lawns, and life unfolds with a comforting rhythm. In the seemingly unblemished scene, Chris and Shanann Watts resided in a spacious, two-story home on Saratoga Trail, a dwelling that outwardly epitomized the American dream. With their two vivacious daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, they appear to be the perfect happy family. On social media, Shanann Watts presented a life that seemed almost perfect. Her Facebook page was vibrant with shared moments, videos capturing her daughter's infectious giggles, their innocent attempts at singing, their uninhibited dancing in the living room. She frequently posted heartfelt messages extolling Chris's virtues, describing him as a loving, supportive, and attentive husband. If you're drawn to gripping true crime stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next case. To the countless friends, family members, and casual acquaintances scrolling through their feeds, the Watts family appeared to be the very embodiment of marital bliss and familial harmony, living out a picture-perfect version of the American dream. However, as is often the case, appearances can be profoundly deceiving. Behind the smiling photos and the cheerfully optimistic posts, cracks were not merely forming but actively widening within the foundation of their seemingly idyllic life. Shanann, already grappling with chronic health issues, including lupus, found herself increasingly burdened by a demanding professional schedule. She worked in sales for Lavelle, a multi-level marketing company promoting health and wellness products, a role that frequently required her to travel extensively. Chris, by contrast, was perceived as quiet, introverted, and outwardly the steady, anchoring partner in the marriage. Yet, as Shanann began to discern a growing emotional distance in his behavior, a chilling unease gnawed at her, a silent alarm bell that grew louder with each passing day. By the summer of 2018, Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with their third child, a boy they had lovingly chosen to name Nico. Friends and family recalled her excitement and joy at the prospect of completing their family, of finally having a son to balance their two spirited daughters. She had even planned a charming gender reveal party, a moment Chris had initially shared, where he learned he was going to be a father to a boy. Yet, while Shanann's joy bubbled over, Chris's enthusiasm, to those paying close attention, seemed strangely muted, almost forced. A disquieting calm lingered in the air around him. Unbeknownst to Shanann, her husband had, by this point, already embarked upon an affair with a co-worker, Nicole Kessinger. Their illicit relationship had blossomed in June 2018, a mere 2 months before Shanann's tragic demise. To Kessinger, Chris presented a carefully constructed narrative. He was a man trapped in the twilight of failing marriage, a union filled by years of emotional distance and irreconcilable differences. He spun a compelling tale of impending separation, of a man searching for happiness and connection after years of perceived emotional starvation. What Kessinger either failed to perceive, or perhaps willfully chose to ignore, was the intricate web of lies Chris was meticulously weaving around her, around his family, and ultimately, around himself. Meanwhile, Shanann, with an intuition sharpened by years of marital intimacy, acutely sensed profound shifts in Chris's demeanor. She confided in her closest friends, her voice laced with growing apprehension about Chris's escalating detachment. He seemed perpetually distracted, his once present gaze now distant and unfocused. His usual attentiveness had dissolved into a chilling disinterest, his warmth replaced by an icy coldness. When she reached out to him with affection, seeking solace and connection, he frequently recoiled, physically and emotionally pulling away. During her fateful trip to North Carolina that summer to visit her family, she tearfully confessed to her trusted friends and her parents that Chris was no longer the man she had married, no longer the man she loved. Something fundamental had irrevocably changed within him. Upon her return from a business trip to Arizona in early August, Shanann harbored a fragile hope, a desperate longing to mend the widening fissures in their marriage. She envisioned heartfelt conversations, shared moment of intimacy, and a renewed commitment to their vows. But her earnest efforts were met not with excitement, but with a chilling wall of resistance, an impenetrable barrier erected by a man whose thoughts were already consumed by something far darker, far more sinister than anyone in her orbit could have possibly imagined. The night of August 12, 2018, marked the start of unspeakable horror. Shanann Watts returned home from her work trip to Arizona in the early hours of August 13th. Her friend and colleague, Nicole Atkinson, had kindly driven her home, dropping her off at the Saratoga Trail residence around 2 a.m. It would be the last time anyone outside of her immediate family, and indeed, soon, anyone at all would see Shanann Watts alive. By the next morning, Monday, August 13th, Nicole Atkinson's concern began to steadily mount. Shanann, uncharacteristically, missed a crucial doctor's appointment for her pregnancy. Her phone remained stubbornly silent, calls going unanswered, text messages left unread, a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. Nicole drove to the Watts home, knocking repeatedly on the front door with no response. Alarmed by the eerie quiet, she promptly contacted the local police department, initiating a welfare check. Officers arrived, and soon after, Chris Watts himself returned home, his demeanor strikingly, unervingly casual. He readily granted the officers access to the house, but insisted, with a disconcerting lack of urgency, that Shanann must have simply taken the girls somewhere, perhaps to a friend's house or a playdate. The interior of the home, however, told a starkly different, far more unsettling story. Shanann's purse, with her wallet and credit cards, lay on the kitchen counter. Her shoes were neatly placed by the front door. Her car, along with the children's car seats, remained conspicuously in the garage. These details, individually minor, collectively screamed a chilling incongruity. It simply did not add up. As the hours dragged by, heavy with unspoken dread, suspicion began to mount, like an oppressive cloud settling over the Watts residence. Chris, meanwhile, made a public appeal to the media, standing on his porch, framed by the very home that held his dark secrets, pleading earnestly for his family's safe return. Shanann Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, he intoned into the cameras, his voice flat, devoid of genuine anguish, just come back. This house isn't the same without you guys. But his carefully chosen words lacked the raw, visceral emotion expected of a desperately worried husband and father. His entire demeanor was disquietingly flat, his expression rehearsed, almost mechanically delivered, raising immediate red flags for those trained to read human behavior. Investigators, with their keen eyes for deception, quickly honed in on the glaring inconsistencies in Chris's fabricated narrative. He initially claimed Shanann had taken the girls to a playdate, but a thorough check revealed no such arrangements had been made. No one could corroborate his story. He then vaguely described an emotional conversation they had before her disappearance, but his details were evasive, inconsistent, and riddled with vagaries that only deepened suspicion. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, were swiftly brought into the escalating case, launching a massive multi-agency search that would soon consume the small community of Frederick. Behind the public facade, detectives meticulously began to dig deeper, sifting through the digital breadcrumbs of Chris's life. Phone records, GPS data from his work vehicle, and crucial surveillance footage began to paint an increasingly damning picture. A neighbor's security camera, strategically positioned, captured Chris backing his truck into the driveway in the early hours of that Monday morning. A seemingly innocuous maneuver he later claimed was merely to load tools for work. But the neighbor, a man named Nate Trinestick, whose own surveillance footage would become a pivotal piece of evidence, insisted that Chris's behavior that day was profoundly not normal. In fact, as Chris walked away from Trinestick's home after reviewing the footage with him, the neighbor, sensing a chilling unease, muttered under his breath to the police officer present, "He's not acting right at all." The unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. Chris Watts was hiding something monumental. As the relentless pressure of the investigation mounted, Chris's carefully constructed facade began to visibly crack, crumbling under the weight of his own lies. He was subjected to a polygraph test, which he unequivocally failed, a significant turning point in the investigation. During subsequent, intensified questioning, cornered and desperate, he finally admitted something shocking, though still far from the full, horrifying truth. He concocted a new, desperate narrative. He claimed Shanann had, in a fit of rage, killed their two daughters, Bella and Celeste, and that he, in a sudden, violent retaliatory act, had then strangled Shanann. But the seasoned investigators, already privy to a growing body of contradictory evidence, did not for a moment believe this transparent attempt at victim blaming. They pressed harder, their voices unwavering, knowing with a terrifying certainty that the truth lurking beneath this latest fabrication was far, far darker still. Finally, broken and without any plausible escape from the ever-tightening net of evidence, Chris Watts confessed, in a chilling, emotionless account that would forever be seared into the national consciousness. He admitted to the unspeakable. He confessed that he had strangled Shanann in their marital bed after she confronted him about his affair and his desire for a separation. Then, in an act of unimaginable, almost incomprehensible cruelty that defied all human understanding, he had driven his two innocent daughters, Bella and Celeste, to a remote oil field owned by his employer, Anadarko Petroleum, and there he had smothered them. The details were agonizing. Bella, the older sister, had fought back, struggling desperately, her final, haunting words echoing to the oil field and later, through his confession, "Daddy, no!" These words, repeated in the cold, detached tones of his confession, would later haunt everyone who heard them, painting a vivid picture of a child's last, desperate plea for life from the very person sworn to protect her. But even this harrowing confession was not the full extent of the horror. Chris further revealed that after savagely ending the lives of his entire family, he had methodically loaded their lifeless bodies into his work truck. He then drove them to that desolate oil field, a place as remote and unforgiving as his own heart had become. There, with a chilling lack of remorse, he had buried Shanann in a shallow, hastily dug grave, a crude final resting place that offered no dignity to the vibrant woman she had been. And then, in a final grotesque act of desecration, he had forced the tiny bodies of Bella and Celeste into separate, towering oil tanks through small openings, submerging them in crude oil, as if to erase their very existence from the world. The agonizing search for the Watts family was over, but the true nightmare had only just begun for a nation struggling to comprehend such unfathomable evil. News of the Watts family murder sent shockwaves across the community of Frederick, rippling outward to grip the entire nation in a collective embrace of horror and disbelief. The question echoed in every mind. How could a man once universally perceived as a quiet, devoted father and husband commit such monstrous atrocities against his own flesh and blood? The details, as they emerged, were almost unbearable in their brutality. The vibrant innocence of two little girls, their lives extinguished far too soon. The extreme vulnerability of a pregnant mother, her dreams of a future with her unborn son shattered. And the ultimate, soul-crushing betrayal by the man they trusted implicitly, the man who was supposed to be their protector. Investigators continued their relentless efforts to unravel the full, horrifying depth of Chris Watts' deception. Shanann's friends, still reeling from the shock, provided investigators with a trove of text messages, poignant and heart-wrenching, that meticulously documented her growing anxiety, her escalating unease, and her profound pain regarding Chris's increasingly cold and distant behavior. Nicole Kessinger, his mistress, eventually came forward, admitting her relationship with Chris, but vehemently claiming she had no inkling, no forewarning, that he was capable of planning anything so violent, so depraved. She maintained to investigators that Chris had presented himself as a man already in the process of separating from Shanann, a narrative he had carefully constructed to facilitate his illicit affair. Hey, if you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon so you don't miss the rest of our true crime investigations. Let's get back to the case. As a highly anticipated trial approached, public outrage reached a fever pitch, a roaring inferno of grief, anger, and a desperate search for understanding. Chris Watts was formally charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, the unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and the unlawful disposal of bodies, each charge a testament to the heinousness of his crimes. Faced with an overwhelming mountain of irrefutable evidence, meticulously gathered by dedicated law enforcement agencies, Chris Watts eventually pleaded guilty to all charges. This plea spared the families the agonizing ordeal of a protracted trial, though it offered little solace in the face of their profound loss. He was subsequently sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his days behind cold, unyielding bars, forever isolated from the world he had so brutally shattered. But even behind the impenetrable walls of a maximum security prison, the story of Chris Watts and his unspeakable crimes was far from over. During a series of chilling prison interviews conducted by investigators seeking to glean every last detail, every nuance of his motivations, Chris shared further haunting insights into that fateful night. He reiterated, with a disturbing lack of emotion, that he had indeed considered giving Shanann drugs to end her pregnancy, a premeditated act that speaks volumes about the depth of his attachment and the cold calculation behind his actions. His calm, almost clinical descriptions of how he ended the lives of his wife and daughters were utterly devoid of the kind of raw emotion, the profound remorse, or the agonizing regret one might reasonably expect from a man who had annihilated his entire family. This unsettling lack of affect, this chilling void where human empathy should have resided, only served to deepen the public's bewilderment and horror. The Watts family murders quickly became one of the most notorious and widely publicized cases of the decade, spawning a torrent of documentaries, true crime books, podcasts, and endless online speculation. It forced people individually and collectively to confront a terrifying and deeply unsettling reality. Sometimes the greatest, most insidious danger comes not from shadowy strangers lurking in the dark alleys of night, but from those who sit across from us at the dinner table, those who share our beds, those we trust implicitly with our lives and our love. The Watts case continues, even years later, to cast a long, chilling shadow over America, a constant, unsettling reminder of the fragility of trust and potential for unimaginable darkness within the most seemingly ordinary individuals. It forces us all to grapple with a fundamental, disquieting question. How well do we ever truly know someone, even those closest to us? To his neighbors, Chris Watts was merely a quiet, unassuming family man, unremarkable in every way. To his friends, he was a stable, dependable presence in Shanann's vibrant life. And to Shanann herself, he was her husband, the father of her beloved children, the anchor of her world. But beneath the meticulously constructed mask of normalcy, beneath the veneer of ordinary life, resided a monster a being capable of committing acts of such profound, unadulterated evil that they defy rational explanation. The story of the Watts family murders has become, unequivocally, one of the most infamous family annihilation cases of the 21st century, a grim benchmark in the annals of true crime. It has generated countless documentaries, delving into every minute detail, inspired numerous books, each attempting to dissect the psychology of the killer, and fueled endless discussions across online forums and social media platforms. True crime enthusiasts, amateur sleuths, and seasoned investigators alike dissect the surveillance footage, scrutinize the timelines, pore over Chris's chilling interviews, and analyze every word, every gesture, searching for some elusive clue, some definitive explanation that might shed light on the unfathomable why. But perhaps that is precisely what makes this story so profoundly chilling, so enduringly terrifying. The haunting possibility that sometimes there is no single rational explanation, no logical sequence of events that can fully account for such depravity. The Watts family murders stand as a stark, brutal reminder of the ultimate betrayal, of consuming obsession, and of the hidden darkness that can fester and erupt within the human heart. A vibrant mother and her two innocent, beautiful little girls, full of life, laughter, and boundless dreams, violently taken from the world by the very man who had sworn an oath to protect them, to cherish them, to nurture their lives. It is a crime that began in quiet, unassuming confines of suburban Colorado home and culminated in the desolate, isolated landscape of an oil field. A crime that will forever be etched into collective memory, remembered not just for its unparalleled brutality, but for the haunting, inescapable question it leaves echoing in its wake. How could a father, a husband, a man who once seemed so ordinary, commit such unthinkable acts against his own family? And perhaps more disturbingly, how many more such monsters walk among us, their darkness hidden just beneath the surface of everyday life? If you found this story as gripping as we did and want to uncover more chilling true crime cases, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Every week, we bring you deeply researched, real-life crime stories told in a way that keeps you hooked from start to finish.